I think so.
So we're here at Linaro Connect. So who are you?
My name is Mathieu Poirier. I worked in the ST-Ericsson landing team, concentrating on kernel and supporting Android on the Snowball board.
I'm Zach Pfeffer. I'm the Linaro Android platform lead and have worked with Matthew to make sure that Android runs as good as it can on the Android, or that Android runs as good as it can on Snowball. So I'm going to just talk to Matthew about how Android came up on Snowball.
It was a long story. Basically, I recognized at one point or another that Snowball had to run Android, and at that point Zach was just coming on at Linaro, and he was my only resource that I had for Android, and I didn't know Android at all. And one afternoon I just decided to ping Zach on IRC, and that's how it all unfolded. Basically started with what was already there for other vendors, starting plowing my way through, and after a couple of days we had come up to the famous folder screen, and at the time I did not know, so I basically waited 3, 4, 5 hours just to understand what was wrong, until I sent a snapshot to Zach saying, this is where I am, I don't have any time left, if you have any ideas just bounce them off me. And like 2 seconds after, he pinged me on IRC saying, well, it's done. It's over. And I've been banging my head on the wall for 3 or 4 hours just to see, or trying to boot Android, and it was done. Well, that's the initial story of it.
Yeah, it was actually quite cool. I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about how, specifically what, you took Panda, that was already running.
Yes, exactly. We
made a copy of it, right? And then where'd you go from there?
Yeah, so I took the Panda board, started compiling it, and then bit by bit, basically I started looking at what was Panda, where the word Panda was, and first what you do is lunch. So I started with lunch, and with lunch I started having the own Snowball folder, organizing the specifics for Snowball in the board config, and we compiled. At first it was our first compilation was the Panda kernel. When we had the compilation, I flipped the kernel, and from there we had to adjust the graloc, the default graloc. And after that, it came up. I was very surprised and happy.
So that was great. You actually, it came up, it was about a week, and then we had Snowball running Android. And then like a couple months later, we had the ARM landing team needing to run Android at Orlando.
In Orlando, and we did the exact same thing.
So can you talk about that?
Yeah. Since at the time, Panda was very advanced in the Linaro Android build, so I knew that it was easier to start from a board that was almost a skeleton build, and the Snowball was perfect for that. So what we did is we took the resource, we took John Tixey from the ARM landing team, equipped him with the Snowball build, and went through the exact same thing. So basically, do a lunch with the Versatile Express. Once that was done, we compiled, we had a build. It was a very basic build at the time. We had no Molly and no multimedia. And we had a build, and as soon as we had a build, we flipped the kernel to use the ARM Versatile kernel, and their board came up very quickly as well. Yeah.
So talk about, if you could, for a long time, a lot of Linaro's Android builds were non-accelerated. They were using software rendering,
Pure frame buffer
for all their work. So little by little, we've enabled hardware acceleration. Can you talk a little bit about enabling hardware acceleration on Snowball first time?
Yeah, the big wake-up call came when Ice Cream Sandwich came out. where it was still possible to run Android with just a frame buffer device, but it was extremely painful. And as soon as 401 came out, it was no longer possible. Our system would run out of memory and crash all the time. We couldn't even do anything. So that's when we decided to, and actually, putting graphic acceleration was in the cards. And so both came at about like the perfect timing for us. So first we had to put the open source Mali into the kernel. That is, it's not the end of the world, but you still have to do it. You still have to put it in there. We did this with the people in partnership with the people at ST-Ericsson, because there were proprietary changes in there that we needed to add. So I'd say that the kernel is the least of the problem that you'll encounter. The bulk of the work resides in user space. Android provides a fairly easy scheme to hook up to a vendor's library. It was the case, SE was no different. So we basically used a Gralloc library that had been compiled in-house out of the libs that are provided by ARM to start with. And that came together. It's hard to do because there are so many pieces that have to be aligned properly. So since we here at Linaro don't have access to those binaries, we are totally dependent on the vendors, and close relationship to work with them is mandatory to make a project like that successful. So you have to align the binaries, you have to align the compiler, and then put the glue code in the Android framework together to actually call that rather than default Gralloc.
What is glue code?
Glue code is basically when Android boots, it will look for, it will iterate through a list of libraries that it knows about. And that's a scheme that's enacted in software. And if it doesn't find any of these combinations of name that Android expects the library to be, it will default to the default Gralloc. So we basically had to look at the scheme and the patterns that Android was looking for in the calling of the libraries and mold the name of our libraries to respect that name so that Android in the cycling through would find the Snowball's Mali lib rather than the default Gralloc.
Thanks, Matthew. Appreciate the history lesson. It's always an interesting and useful tale, because I think it shows that you can take the Linaro Android builds and use them as a base for a new port, and that is
Absolutely.
very possible.
Absolutely. Anyone who wants to make a product, take any of our boards, and you can start from the Linaro Android build. This is the foundation. You have everything that you need to build a product. All that people can have to do is concentrate on adding value-added features to our build. So instead of having to fight with the foundation, board bring up, installing a kernel, booting Android, putting all this glue code together, you do linaro.org, you start looking at the offerings that the Android team has, and it's all there for you. And we already have people that have done that and have successful products in the field.
So does it only get easier and easier now?
Well, I think what has come before gets easier and easier, but the wonderful thing about Android is it's always refreshing. There's always a new Android coming out. There's always a new thing. And recently, Android itself, the Android source libraries have been completely, or the Android framework has been completely reorganized, and we're looking forward to playing with that and seeing how that works. But as a whole, Android has a really efficient development methodology. Everything's in the build. It's easy to experiment with. It's easy to work with, and I think that because of that, it's made Android a really, really popular platform to work with, and I certainly like working with it. As an embedded systems engineer by training, I like to hack everything, and so it's a good platform for that. Well, hey, Matthew, thanks, man.
Likewise, friend.